want to welcome everybody for joining us for today's private investor meeting with Alphyn Biologics. As you guys may know, Alphyn is a late-stage clinical dermatology company. They're developing patented plant-derived topical therapeutics led by a phase 2A completed asset in atopic dermatitis, with additional pipeline programs including Molluscum Contagiosum Virus. And some of the differentiators about Alphyn: huge market. I'm sure every family's affected by this ailment. Multi-target topical mechanism. It addresses multiple disease drivers. Really great traction. Company recently closed on $25 million, and Neil will fill us in on that, as well as discuss his capital raise strategy going forward. Strong safety and tolerability profile to date. Patent protection in the US and Europe extending to 2043. And they also have secured regulatory compliant raw material supply, which I know has been a concern for some people that are in the investing in plant-derived therapeutics. But without further ado, I want to thank you guys for joining us and turn things over to Neil Kohler, who's the founder and CEO of Alphyn Biologics. Neil, thank you and welcome.
Great. Thank you, Tien, and everyone for joining in. Tien, you did a great summary job. I'll dig into those details.
I was a little concerned about pronouncing some of those.
You did well.
Okay, thank you.
You did well. I think that this slide is the two big points in this slide right now is our drugs address the first two drugs in the pipeline address two huge market opportunities that remain highly unsatisfied for therapeutics. And we have the next generation drug platform that everyone wants. Details coming. Slide not going. There we go. So recent milestones. This is over the last quarter. We oversubscribed 3 times. Our Series B financing finally closed at $25 million. Our phase 2B clinical trial is showing encouraging results. I'll show you a bit of that. We closed enrollment, so we hit our enrollment target end of January. As Tien said, 3 patents issued, 2 in the US, 1 in Europe. Europe qualified. The claims allowed letter is out. The patents we expect to publish this quarter. We have a number of strong peer-reviewed papers that support the technology in the first 2 drugs, and we have a solid GMP supply of raw material. What is the drug technology that everybody wants? It is a plant-based technology. We use the complete disease defense liquid of a plant, the whole liquid. And the reason we use this whole liquid is because it has multiple bioactive compounds, so it has multiple mechanisms of action. It has multiple ways to treat an individual disease, as Tien said, to treat each of the drivers of an individual disease. Multiple diseases it can treat, so we have a rich pipeline of new drug products. It has an excellent safety, side effect, patient tolerability profile. It is, from the consumer perspective, the preferred drug type. As every physician has told us, patients would love to have natural drugs. And as you'll see, it has a much faster, less expensive path through the FDA and other health authorities. And to underline that just for a moment, with the $34 million that we have raised to date, and note we still have $14 million in the bank. So with $20 million raised to date, we have been able to get through 2 phase 2A clinical trials in 5 years. So the counter to that, if you know your pharmaceutical world, most people to get to the end of 2 phase 2 trials have spent 50, 100, 150 million, and most of them have taken 8 or 10 or 12 years. So this is the much faster, less expensive drug approval path. And it is a drug approval through FDA CDER division. So our drug, what makes it very unique, it has multiple active compounds, so it has multiple mechanisms of action. In particular, for our first indication, which is atopic dermatitis, most people know this as eczema. We have mechanisms that actually directly treat the itch of the disease. We have mechanisms that directly treat the inflammation caused by the immune system. And we have mechanisms that treat the bacteria that have mechanisms that cause the disease. It's only this middle anti-inflammatory mechanism that the other drugs treat. And so they treat the immunoinflammatory portion, and the body eventually has to take care of the bacteria problem and the itch problem. We treat all of these directly. That is the uniqueness of the efficacy of the drug. 2025 updates are we did not have to do a phase 1 clinical trial, not required. So that's another big step, big evidence point about the safety of the drug. Second evidence point is we were able to start the atopic dermatitis trial at age 2. Normally, you have to start at age 18, do your trials at age 18 and older, and then ratchet down to age 12 and older, and then ratchet down to age 2 and older. We were able to start directly out of the chute at age 2. Highlights the safety of the drug, and it highlights this faster, less expensive path to drug approval. I mentioned, or Tian mentioned also, we did 2 phase 2 clinical trial programs. The first trial was proof of concept. It had limitations, only 4 weeks. Normally, these drugs in atopic dermatitis do 8, 12, 16 weeks. We reduced the endpoint bars in the trial because we were only 4 weeks. And 80% of our patients in this trial were mild atopic dermatitis patients. Generally, the atopic dermatitis patients are divided mild to moderate, moderate to severe. And those are the patients that actually get to see the doctor. Anything that doesn't meet that classification, the myriad of drugstore products that you can buy, consumer products, takes care of the eczema. So we're focused on just those patients that get to the doctor. And when you have mild patients, very difficult to show an improvement in the drug with as a result of the drug because the disease isn't so severe. And we only did 41 patients. So with these limitations, only 4 weeks, mostly mild, only 41 patients, what we found was we hit every endpoint. So this was encouraging for us. And we went on to say, we'll do a second phase 2A trial in a more difficult eczema population. This population was where bacteria was colonized, driving the disease on the skin. The normal atopic dermatitis trial, the other drugs do, but the bacteria had not driven atopic dermatitis disease yet to infection stage. Infection stage disease, much more difficult to treat. And in the next trial, we did the infection stage. If you look across the top of this chart, you'll see each of the key endpoints in the trial categorized by how the doctors look at importance. And if you look at the left-hand column, you'll see our Zabolofin at the top and then the key competitors down the left side. And the main takeaway with all these numbers is wherever you see the dark green for Zabolofin, we were best with all these other drugs in comparison. The center column critical were the only drug that treats that bacterial component. And where you see the light green, we were right in there as good as some, better than some, not quite as good as some. And the physician's takeaway here is in this difficult to treat category, this is drug of choice results if we continue to show this in the phase 2B and the phase 3 trials for several reasons, which I'll go into. So we teed up and we started in 2025 our phase 2B clinical trial. This trial combines those first 2 trials. So we're taking not only atopic dermatitis with the bacteria at colonization stage, but we're taking atopic dermatitis where the bacteria has progressed the disease to infection, that tougher patient population. January 30th, We completed enrollment in the trial. The trial target is 100 evaluable patients. We completed enrollment at 129 patients. You always over-enroll because patients drop out for various reasons. They don't want to make the drive to the doctor anymore, et cetera, et cetera. It's a standard randomized vehicle-controlled double-blinded trial. It's an 18-week trial, 16 weeks on the drug, and then 2 weeks later, a post-drug follow-up. And this trial again starts 2 years old and older. We're performing the trial in Australia and South America with FDA. The IND is open. I need to mention that the only reason we haven't started with FDA in the US is they still want us to start at age 18. So we're still fighting that fight to get FDA to agree that we can start at age 2, because that would be a huge time and cost savings if we can get the agency to agree to that. Standard endpoints, plus we uniquely include the bacterial endpoints. And I'm going to show you interim results of a few patients just so you get to see what we're seeing in the trial. This is a patient, day 1 on the left, 16-week, finished the trial on the right. Atopic dermatitis is gone. Here's a day 1 on the left, week 16 on the right. Atopic dermatitis is gone. Here's a day 1 on the left, week 12 on the right. So the trial isn't quite finished yet. Atopic dermatitis is gone. Here's a day 1, a week 16. You can see the atopic dermatitis all around the neck, into the armpit, on the arm, and at week 16, gone. A day 1, a week 12, atopic dermatitis is gone. A day 1, week 12 again, atopic dermatitis is gone. A day 1, week 16, nicely cleaned up disease. Here's a day 1, week 8. At week 8, halfway through the trial, the atopic dermatitis is cleared up. And another one, day 1, week 18. The atopic dermatitis is cleared up. So we gave 17 of these photos to one of our clinicians who's not in the trial to do a third-party evaluation of the patients. This is an almost 100% atopic dermatitis specialist out of a university in Chicago, close advisor for Alphyn. And when he looked at these patients, if you go down this center column, this is the column and the endpoint that FDA looks at. And his assessment was 15 of 17 of the photos he looked at already met the endpoint. And interestingly, they're expected to meet the endpoint at the end of the trial, 16 weeks. But 3 of those patients met the endpoint already at 8 weeks. And when we saw that, I asked our chief scientific officer to go back into the data, and these are the center columns here, and see what the principal investigators reported for the other 2 key components, itch and quality of life improvement. For itch, the principal investigators found 14 of 17 hit the endpoint. And interestingly, 2 of the 3 8-weekers already hit the endpoint, and the third one was only 1 step away. And on quality of life, again, 17 or 15 of 17 hit the endpoint for quality of life improvement. We had, and I'll note, we gave the doctor 2 photos here at the bottom of what we thought were non-responders. We had 11 non-responders at the time. So, the trial isn't, lopsided, 17 responding and 2 non. It's pretty well spread. The comment is based on the phase 2A, the ones we thought were responders are very likely drug. The ones we think are non-responders, we don't really know if it's drug or not. But the physician who reviewed this first patient that we thought was a non-responder actually at 4 weeks had already hit the itch goal and already hit the quality of life improvement. So the takeaway from this really is it's blinded. We don't know what is drug, what is vehicle or placebo, but the results are really pointing to very encouraging. This trial will unblind since enrollment finished January 30th, right around June 15th. We should be able to really look at all the patients, 100 plus, drug versus vehicle, and see what we have for the endpoints. This compares where we are today, or as of December 22nd. If we finish the trial December 22nd, same chart as the phase 2A trial, and it shows you again, looking across at Zabolofin on top, that our results are continue to be really quite strong compared to the other drugs. So very, very encouraging. We have a number of published papers now that support our drug. Here are four. I won't go through them, but they all do the same thing. They all report on best practices, new best practices to treat atopic dermatitis. And they all have looked at, the physicians have looked at the phase 2A data I showed you, and they all four papers conclude if Zabolofin continues on with this type of performance, it should be drug of choice. It would be my drug of choice from the authors to treat atopic dermatitis. The market is huge. We peg it at 48 billion. Two current drugs out there based on their sales, their sell price, their market share over here on the right, they could project huge 270 to 400 billion market size. So we're cutting it at 48 billion. Big, big opportunity. There are 5 immediate exit examples in atopic dermatitis right in our space. All 5 of them are over $1 billion. 4 of them to the left are at the phase 2 completed or earlier stage. We will now be phase 2 completed for atopic dermatitis June of this year. And so when Alphyn will be here at the bottom means the first opportunity for a liquidity event for a pharmaceutical company is at the end of phase 2. And our projection is we should be within range of a first liquidity event opportunity in 12 to 18 months, right around the corner. We have a second drug now, a second drug indication. The same drug is now in clinical trials, phase 2. The disease is Molluscum Contagiosum Virus. That virus, you can see the photos on the right. The problem is these raised lesions. They're unsightly, they're embarrassing, they're highly contagious. They can be incessantly itchy. And if they become infected with bacteria from the scratching, they can become very painful. Current treatments, you either freeze the lesions off, you burn the lesions off, you surgically remove them, or now there are 2 new drugs that chemically burn the lesions. So this highly unsatisfied market because all of the options for the doctor are skin destructive and painful. Our drug is unique. It brings back this same multi-target therapeutic approach, multiple mechanisms of action. For the first time, as we know, we actually kill the molluscum virus without this painful destruction. The drug actually targets and kills the virus directly, painlessly. We have mechanisms that target the itch. We have mechanisms that target the immune system that goes crazy to make those large lesions, and we target the bacteria directly to keep the bacteria at normal levels and help prevent the secondary infection, bacteria infection and pain. But the second key piece of this, just like atopic dermatitis, is the safety piece. And maybe it's the safety piece that has the doctors most excited. We won't have any of the painful chemical burning or scraping or removal from curettage or surgical removal. We won't have the pain from freezing. We won't have the pain from burning. And the safety profile otherwise has allowed this trial to start at 6 months old, first in human use in this disease, 6 months old. So a big step forward underlying the safety of the drug. We have proof of concept trials from about 10 years ago for the drug raw material itself. This is the center's Alphyn concept. This is what led us to say, gee, we should have our second drug in Molluscum Contagiosum. We compared our proof of concept results to the two drugs that have been recently approved by FDA here on the right, cantharidin and berdazimer. And as you can see on the efficacy line, we were very, very effective at treating the disease. And remember, we're treating it by putting something that feels like hand lotion on your skin, not by burning it or freezing it or chemically burning it. And you can see the adverse events. We have had none reported, where the other drugs have some significant adverse events. So a very, very encouraging result, proof of concept, and we'll be able to take a peek at this data next week. And final results should be August, when the trial concludes. So that's the summary. I've already gone through this slide. The market for molluscum is huge. There are 8 million sufferers reported in the US, 6 million children. When you extrapolate that out to global market, 22 million or billion potential in revenue. The market prices are built on the current reimbursed price for the two new drugs, which is quite high. And then we factored back those prices in all of the other markets so that we take into account, reality of sales outside the US. There's one market comparable enterprise value. One of those two drugs, the parent company of that drug, Verica, did an IPO back in 2018, and the IPO valued the company just for the molluscum drug at $386 million. So we have two good drug market comparables to support a nice exit value for the company when we finish these two trials. Market protections. As I mentioned, we have two issued patents in the US. We have a claims allowed letter from Europe. The patent should issue this year. We have, and I'll go into this a bit more, we think a 15-year head start on drug raw material supply. We have potential for regulatory exclusivity of 5 or maybe 10 years from FDA on drug approval, 8 years in Europe and Japan on the date of drug approval. And at least in the US, because we are a plant-based drug, there's no FDA generic drug approval path. You have to do human clinical trials. By definition, that leaves out the generics. Our drug raw material asset. First, I'm going to go to that bottom bullet. Once the disease defense liquid gets into our hands, it goes right to a standard pharmaceutical manufacturing process to turn it into a topical drug. For the raw material itself, FDA gave us all of the requirements we needed in our pre-IND meeting back in 2020 on how they will look at drug quality and how they will look at how we're putting together our drug quantity program. And so we've taken all of that FDA information. There's an FDA botanical drug guidance that's published, and there's a WHO good agricultural and collection practice guidance that we're following. And so we started planning our own plants in 2022. And at this point, we finished the 2025 planting. We have 60,000 plants now that we own in our control that are all completely documented and managed according to the FDA and WHO GMP requirements. Those 60,000 plants at the current US high reimbursement price supports already a $4.8 billion business for us. And we'll keep adding to this supply as we go forward. So a robust FDA compliant supply of drug raw material. In terms of financing, As I mentioned, we closed out our $25 million Series B. We had three other previous financings starting in 2020, a first convertible note, a second convertible note. Both of those convertible notes converted into our Series A financing. In total, we've raised 33.7 million from stockholders. And you remember I mentioned we're doing most of our clinical trial work in Australia. That's because the Australia government returns 43% of all money you spend in Australia. And so we've already gotten back from Australia 2.5 million directly into our bank account. That's equivalent to another fundraising. We have 8 grants submitted in the US. And we're waiting to hear about those grant, whether they'll be granted or not, but 8 grants at least in the pipeline. As we look at 2026, there are key impactors in 2026 that we're working on to set up the potential for a first liquidity event. We will complete 2 phase 2 clinical trial programs. We'll have potential for 2 additional published papers to support both our AD drug and our molluscum drug. When that EU patent issues, it's going to issue in 26 countries, so we'll really add to the number of patents that we have. We'll be adding another big chunk of trees to our drug raw material supply. By the end of this year, we should have our 2 FDA end of phase 2 clinical trial meetings. The phase 3 trial should be set up and ready to go. We're already in process on manufacturing tech transfer to our third company for manufacturing. It'll be our second tech transfer now to a company who can do phase 3 quantities, and more importantly, they can do commercial quantities. So we'll be a commercial quantity level by the end of the year, and hopefully we'll have some of these grants come through very soon. The grants right now are held up because of all the government shutdowns. So those are the key impactors to what we think could be a first liquidity event, which is normal possibility at the end of the phase 2 program. And I did leave out a financing slide, so I'm going to talk about it without showing it because I don't want to dance through everything. What we're doing today in terms of financing is we are talking to potential commercial partners. We started talking to potential commercial partners 2+ years ago. We have a number of companies following us, a number of companies waiting to see both phase 2 clinical trial results come this summer. And so one potential path forward is on financing is we could be acquired. We could do a license agreement that could add to the second piece of work that we're doing, is Series C financing. The Series C financing we expect to start mid-June or mid-July, depending on when we actually get the results of the 2 phase 2 trials. That financing will have 3 key milestones to it: 2 phase 3 clinical trial programs, in addition to our raw material drug supply. The round right now is expected to be 70 million. And so there's a possibility that from our earlier and current work with potential commercial partners, they'll be participants. We've also been talking to larger venture capital groups. We've also been talking to investment banking groups about trying to raise that Series C funding. And there are some of the investment banking groups who think maybe this is the year for IPO, and they've begun to talk a bit about IPO. So in terms of financing, we're looking for first, can we exit with phase 2 results? Second, can we get a license agreement that will help fund the Series C? Third, we're talking to VCs and investment banks about the Series C. And 4, we're talking to investment banks, interestingly, about the potential for IPO because maybe they're thinking the market is opening. And with that, I think I'm going to conclude, Tien, and
Yep.
I can see there are a bunch of things in the chat, but I
Yep.
haven't
Yep.
looked in
We've
the
been getting
chat.
some questions, and thank you so much, Neil. And first thing I'd like to do is put up a poll for investors. again, this is completely confidential. We're only going to share this information with Neil. So if you can indicate your level of interest, very interested, let's follow up with a meeting. Interested, would like more info. Not interested, but you may know some investors who are interested, or not interested at all. And hopefully we can get close to 100% participation. Even if you're not interested, just let us know. Um, so yeah, we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to either put the question right into the chat box, or some people have private messaged me, and you can feel free to private message me if you don't want attribution, or to Avery or Emily as well. So first question is from Lawrence, and he's asking, how does your cost or projected cost compare to your two main competitors?
We have projected that out over a 5-year period in sales launch, and the cost of the topical shouldn't be a whole lot different than any other topical that I've come across. And to put that in perspective, the last company I ran and exited was a topical drug company, and so I know, and I ended up for a while being the plant manager for the company till we hired one, and the costs are rolling out to be about the same. Typically, the most expensive part and piece of your final manufacturing cost is the tube, and that's looking like what it'll be for us. So we've projected in somewhere in the $5 to $10 per unit range. And as I said, the drivers to that are how fancy a box and what kind of tube.
Got it. Great. Sean Who has a question. Sean, do you want to unmute?
Yes, Sean
Hi.
here. I'm from Axial Venture. Yeah, for some reason my email says that the meeting was 11:30, so I joined a bit later actually. Is that This question mainly for host. Is that recorded so I can share a little bit maybe after
Yes,
this meeting? Okay, great.
absolutely, Sean. We will, Avery will send out an email with a link to the recording. If you don't receive it by end of day, just let us know.
Yeah, if you also maybe include the slide deck, it'll be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Marty Koev had a question. Do you have any grants or contracts awarded? I know on your slide, Neil, you showed some applications, but have you been granted anything of late?
Nothing's been granted. We really started the grant process coming up on a year ago, so we didn't spend any time previously on grants. I'll pass this along. The first two grants, according to our grant writers who are experienced, seem to have scores and seem to have progressed to where they have confidence once the grant portion of the NIH budget is funded, that we should get the first two grants. I'll plan on it when I see the money in the bank, but the team has confidence that the first two grants are looking good, and then the other six are still working their way through the process.
Thank you. Another question. Who are the companies that could acquire you or license technology? I don't know if you're at liberty to identify names or.
Well, what I will do is I can identify companies. I'm not going to identify any discussions we've had with any of those companies. So this is a target list, not an engaged list. But if you look out you look at large pharma and you look at mid-sized pharma, and we have a big solid program to get inside these companies. But large pharma, the obviouses are Sanofi, AbbVie, Eli Lilly, J&J, Novartis. I know I've missed a couple of folks. Pfizer. They all have big atopic dermatitis, either revenue. Sanofi's is the market leader right now with, I'm sure you've all seen Dupixent on US television. They expect 10 billion in revenue just in atopic dermatitis this year. So those are good targets. There are more large pharmas. Takeda's on that list, but those are the major pharmas with sales and programs. Then there are the mid-size pharmas. There are 5 or 6 Japanese companies. Teikaku Seiyako, Maruho, JP Pharma, Torii, as examples. There are European companies, mid-level companies, Leo Pharma, Almirall, Galderma. There are Latin American companies, Europharma, based in Brazil. So just off the top of my head, those are some of the companies, but we have a whole team focused on outreach to large and mid-sized pharmas to be sure they're up to speed and see if we can interest them in some sort of deal. And we've been doing this now for roughly 2 years.
Wow, this is a great list. Renee had a question. Verrica's market cap is down 75% from their IPO. Do you know why?
Absolutely, we know why. First, I'll tell you why they think their market cap is down, but then we'll agree with that. But then we'll tell you why additionally. Verrica's drug is a drug that was used and compounded in compounding pharmacies for 20 or 30 years prior to Verrica getting approval. And so up until their approval, there was this huge supply chain of individual prescriptions from doctors being sent to compounding pharmacies around the country. When Verrica looked at this and said, gee, the doctors are writing lots of prescriptions, therefore we'll get an FDA approval for this and we'll create a company. And they did get an FDA approval and they formed a company. What they found was that the doctors continued to send the prescriptions to the compounding pharmacies. And so they got involved in a number of lawsuits. All of the inventory they built, they had to destroy because it all expired. FDA had to get involved because once a drug that is compounded by a pharmacy gets an FDA approval, by FDA regulation, the compounding pharmacy has to stop. So FDA got involved. And so they had a couple of 3 years of a mess on the supply chain side. That is their story, and that's true. Our story is the drug is 2-part. It has to be mixed up only in the doctor's office by the doctor or the doctor's assistant. The doctors don't like doing it because it wastes time and they don't get to see patients and they don't get enough of a reimbursement from Medicare, Medicaid, or the private insurers to make it worth their while to mix it up in the office. And the big point is it burns like a son of a gun. So, and you're really dealing 3/4 of these patients are children. So you put it on, you saw all the lesions in the picture. You never have one. You always have 30 to 100, and they only put it on the lesion 5 or 10 times, and the child goes home, and 2 hours later, the child's in pain. The child never comes back. The drug is not a good drug, is the bottom line. That's what we're seeing. And that's exactly and that's quotes from the doctors and what's happening. So the stock's down because the sales are lousy. Surprise, surprise.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Question on the IP portfolio. How strong is your IP portfolio? How were you able to get a patent on a plant?
So we don't have a patent on a plant. What we have done is we took FDA's requirement for how they will look at our testing to be sure that we have consistent drug performance. And in the FDA requirements for testing, we found unusual results in the different types of tests that FDA required. And it was those unusual results that came from different concentrations and formulas produced different results in the tests FDA asked for that we found were unusual, not expected. And so we were able to get composition of matter claims around those different types of formulations, both the drug raw material, patent 1, and the drug product, patent 2. So we didn't patent a plant, but we patented formulations that worked and didn't work that were surprising in testing. The strength of our patents, we think the patents are very strong because we tested outside of what the patent claims are, and when we got outside of the patent claims, we didn't have a drug product, or we didn't have a drug that performed. So at least we couldn't make those for those 2 patents. We couldn't make anything perform outside of the claims that are in the patent. So at least we think they're very good for that reason.
What domains or what geographies are you patented in?
Well, we've applied for patents in all of the countries that have reasonable healthcare programs and healthcare drug reimbursement. So we haven't applied all around the world. Patents are issued in the U.S. The claims allowed letter patents will issue, we think, this quarter in Europe. But today we have patent office activity. Finally, it took them a little while in Japan. We have patent office activity in China. We have patent office activity in Israel. But other countries we have applied for patents, Canada, Australia, India. I've forgotten who I've missed. South Africa. There's some reasonable reimbursement in South Africa. I think it's not a big list, but it's a list where you have some people may follow patent law. Maybe that's not India or China, but people do pay for drugs. That's really where do they really pay for drugs?
Mhm.
And in India and China, as you know, probably 10% pay full boat for drugs, and 10% of those countries is huge. So we applied there.
Got it. Question on valuations regarding what was the valuation for your last round? What is it for the current round? And is this commensurate with market values of comparable companies at similar clinical stages?
So I have a good example. Our post money from the Series B was $82 million. I showed you for atopic dermatitis 5 different exit deals in a previous slide. One of those exit deals was Sanofi bought a company called Chemob. Chemob at their exit was at the end of phase 2. So our 82 million is equivalent end of phase 2 clinical trial. Chemob, to the best we can tell, had raised $280 million to get to the end of phase 2. So based on what we've seen, and that is one example, I think our pre-monies and post-monies are lower than market comparable. For the Series C, the board really hasn't hunkered down yet on what does a Series C look like. We could argue based on the Chemob history that if Chemob raised 280 million, why they likely had a higher post-money valuation than that at the time that they did the deal. So I'm grousing around a little because I don't really have a number, but I could see it in the 150 to 250 range as pre-money for the Series C, but we really haven't talked about it.
Got it. I'd like to open it up to the floor if anyone has any burning questions regarding Neo or the opportunity. Feel free to raise your hand or type your question right in the chat box.
And I don't know if you can still see me. My laptop screen now it's coming back. So maybe
Yeah, we can see you.
you can see me. Okay, because it's something happened. It's black.
Got it. Great. Well, it looks like we've satisfied quite a few questions. We have some great poll results, guys. The last call for the polls. I think we have 68% participation. So anyone who hasn't filled out, if you could do that. Again, that'll be confidential. We will not share it with anybody. Um, we have another question here. Sarvasti is asking, when are your first revenues expected?
Well, if we take it that far, our goal, I have to say, our goal really is acquisition, liquidity event, have someone else get to revenue. But if we had to take it to revenue, we're probably 4 years, as long as funding stays on track, 4 years from FDA approval for both drugs. Two drugs should be about the same time.
Got it. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Neil, great job. Thank you so much
Thank you, everybody.
for the presentation. We will send Avery will be sending out an email with the link to this presentation. It's recorded, as well as the presentation deck here. And we'll follow up with you, especially those of you who have indicated that you're very interested or interested. Thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, this is a great stuff. Neil, I'm a potential future patient, so
We're here.
can't wait till you get it out in the market. But I want to thank everybody else for joining us today, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.